Making a mistake is something that humans do regularly. At work, we may mess up a customer's order or forget to send out that important email. It was likely easily rectified or fixed the following day. There are, however, occasions where someone's mistake can cost billions of dollars. Stay with us as we count down the 5 most expensive mistakes in the world. Number 5. Piper Alpha disaster. An oil platform set up in the North Sea, 120 miles northeast of Scotland, operated by Occidental Petroleum. It began production in 1976, refining only oil. Later on, gas was added to the list of materials it produced. In 1988, a tragic event happened. One simple mistake would eventually cause the destruction of this oil platform. On July 6, 1988, an engineer was doing maintenance on a pump's pressure safety valve. He replaced the valve with a metal cover, but instructed the staff not to turn the pump on because of the ongoing maintenance. The afternoon shift clocked off, and the night shift workers came in to start their shift, but they forgot to pass on the information about the pressure safety valve. The night shift workers turned the pump on, which led to a huge pressure buildup. One small metal cover couldn't hold back the pressure any longer, and gas began to pump out at an alarming rate. Eventually, an ignition source caused it to catch on fire, and there was a catastrophic explosion. The explosion and the intense fires that followed ended up costing 165 men their lives, and a further 2 men whose rescue vehicle was destroyed by the disintegrating rig. 61 workers managed to escape and survive. The oil platform eventually sank, causing an estimated 1.7 billion euros worth of damage. It was one of the costliest man-made catastrophes ever and is the worst offshore oil disaster in terms of lives lost and industry impact. Number 4. Hanshin Expressway. The Hanshin Expressway is a 148-mile-long network of expressways surrounding Osaka, Kobe, and Kyoto in Japan. On the 17th of January, 1995, at 5:46 a.m. in the morning, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck the city of Kobe. The tremors lasted for about 20 seconds. The focus of the earthquake was located 17 kilometers beneath its epicenter, on the northern end of Awaji Island, 20 kilometers away from the center of the city of Kobe. Many buildings were destroyed in just 20 seconds, but the largest damage occurred to a 400-meter section of the Hanshin Expressway. Normally, this structure should survive an earthquake, so researchers set to work to find out why it collapsed. They found the expressway to have an inadequate structural design. Particularly, it had insufficient and prematurely terminated longitudinal reinforcement, inadequate hoop anchorage, and insufficient shear capacity. The expressway had effectively fallen over like dominoes, leading to a year-long rebuild. It officially reopened on September 30th, 1996. The estimated cost of this engineering mistake, a staggering $4.6 billion. This structure was rebuilt, however, no money can replace the 6,434 lives that were lost as a result of this earthquake. Number 3. MV Prestige oil tanker. The MV Prestige was launched on the 10th of December 1975 and was completed on the 30th of March 1976. It had an impressive length of 243 meters. In November of 2002, the ship was carrying 77,000 tons of heavy fuel oil on a routine delivery. The 26-year-old vessel hit some stormy weather while traveling in the North Sea. On November 13, it burst a storage tank from damage caused by the storm. That same day, the ship attempted to dock to get the damage repaired, but the French, Spanish, and Portuguese governments refused to allow it to dock in their countries. The vessel subsequently sank on November 19, 2002, about 210 kilometers or 130 miles from the coast of Galicia, Spain. It is estimated that it spilled 60,000 tons, or a volume of 17.8 million gallons of oil. The spill polluted thousands of kilometers of coastline and more than 1,000 beaches on the Spanish, French, and Portuguese coast, as well as causing great harm to the local fishing industry. The spill is the largest environmental disaster in the history of both Spain and Portugal. The 2012 trial of the Galicia Regional High Court found the captain of the ship guilty and gave him a 9-month suspended sentence for disobedience. In January 2016, the Spanish Supreme Court held the London P&I Club liable in damages up to the amount of its overall cover for the ship owner for pollution of $1 billion. The Spanish judgment is unlikely to be enforceable due to a UK judgment requiring any claims to be determined via arbitration under UK law. The overall damages awarded by the court in A Coruña in 2017 was just over 1.5 billion euros, a figure confirmed by the Spanish Supreme Court in December 2018. Number 2. Lake Peigneur. Located in Louisiana, it is a popular lake used primarily by sportsmen, until an event on November 20, 1980, changed its structure and the surrounding land. An oil rig contracted by Texaco was doing exploratory drilling above the lake at the time when they accidentally penetrated an existing salt mine owned by the Diamond Crystal Salt Company. The drilling that started a chain of events that slowly filled the salt mine with water. The lake then drained into the hole, expanding the size of that hole as the soil and salt were washed into the mine by the rushing water, filling the enormous caverns that had been left by the removal of salt since 1919. The resultant sinkhole swallowed the drilling platform, 11 barges holding supplies for the drilling operation, a tugboat, many trees, and 65 acres, or 26 hectares, of the surrounding terrain. So much water drained into the caverns that the flow of the Del Cambre Canal that usually empties the lake into Vermilion Bay was reversed, causing salt water from the Gulf of Mexico to flow into what was now a dry lake bed. This backflow created for a few days the tallest waterfall ever in the state of Louisiana at 164 feet or 50 meters high, as the lake refilled with salty water from the Del Cambre Canal and Vermilion Bay. Air displaced by water flowing into the mine caverns erupted through the mine shafts as compressed air, and then later as 400-foot or 120-meter high geysers. Although no human lives were lost, 3 dogs were reported killed. All 55 employees in the mine at the time of the accident escaped, with 6 employees later given awards by Diamond Crystal for heroism. Texaco and the drilling contractor Wilson Brothers paid $32 million to Diamond Crystal and $12.8 million to a nearby botanical garden and plant nursery, Live Oak Gardens, in out-of-court settlements to compensate for the damage caused. This lake has now permanently changed from freshwater to saltwater. Number 1. Chernobyl. One of the worst man-made disasters ever occurred on Saturday, April 26, 1986. The accident occurred during a safety test on the steam turbine of an RBMK-type nuclear reactor. During a planned decrease of reactor power in preparation for the test, the power output unexpectedly dropped to near zero. The operators were unable to restore the power level specified by the test program, which put the reactor in an unstable condition. This risk was not made evident in the operating instructions, so the operators proceeded with the test. Upon test completion, the operators triggered a reactor shutdown. But a combination of operator negligence and critical design flaws had made the reactor primed to explode. Instead of shutting down, an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction began, releasing enormous amounts of energy. The core melted down, and 2 or more explosions ruptured the reactor core and destroyed the reactor building. This was immediately followed by an open-air reactor core fire. It released considerable airborne radioactive contamination for about 9 days that precipitated onto parts of the USSR and Western Europe, before finally ending on 4th May 1986. Some 70% of the fallout landed in Belarus, 16 kilometers or 9.9 miles away. The reactor explosion killed 2 engineers and severely burned 2 more. A massive emergency operation to put out the fire, stabilize the reactor, and clean up the ejected nuclear core began. During the immediate emergency response, 134 station staff and firemen were hospitalized with acute radiation syndrome due to absorbing high doses of ionizing radiation. Of these 134 people, 28 died in the days to months afterward, and approximately 14 suspected radiation-induced cancer deaths followed within the next 10 years. Chernobyl is the worst nuclear disaster the world has ever seen, both in terms of casualties and cost. The initial cleanup cost was estimated to be about 18 billion rubles, which today is around 68 billion US dollars. It is said that 5 to 7% of government spending in Ukraine to this day is still being spent on Chernobyl-related expenses. From continued cleanups to social payments to people from Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia affected by the disaster. As we have seen from all of these accidents, simple mistakes can have catastrophic and costly consequences. Don't forget to like the video.